Hey everyone, it's Imran, and I'm back with another special episode of The Healed Trader. So this series that we started is talking about things like trauma and healing and some of those things that happened in our childhood that impacted our lives. And as we get older, we realize, there's some kind of reparenting to be done, and there's some work that needs to be done, inner work. I've certainly experienced it myself, and Dave, who is my friend and co-host on previous episodes, has too. But I've got another friend in the studio with me today. I've got Sezer Sheriff, a man I've known for over 20 years, a good friend of mine who agreed to come on the podcast. He's got a lot of interesting stories and experiences to share, and he's been kind enough to say he's going to open up about them today. Yeah. So, mate, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, bro. And, just want to say well done on the podcast and the content you're putting out.
Yeah,
there, man.
Cheers, man.
No, honestly, it's as men, has to be said. I think we all need to see that it's okay to open up, to share, and to know there's other men out there that want to support. And so happy to be here.
It's so funny. Like I never used to open up about this stuff. Right? It was like, it's only really in the last sort of year, after going to therapy, after going through a divorce, after kind of experiencing the first real meaningful loss in my life, one of my best friends. All feelings weren't something we were supposed to have or talk about, right? When we've been career-driven, focused individuals, and our values have all been about achievement and making money and security and providing for our families, talking about your feelings, like that's just a distraction, right? That's kind of how I always felt. Yeah. And it was almost like, that was a sign of weakness, right?
I mean, definitely culturally as well. Being from England, there's that stiff upper lip mentality. And so as men, you're right, you just meant to bury it deep inside and march on, and doesn't really work, does it? I mean, I've seen that, you've seen that. And so there is a better way, that's for sure. And I think, I've gone down that path. I know you have, so it's something that we have to share now.
So in the last episode, we said traumas, we mentioned a few traumas, and we said it wasn't necessarily some really bad trauma like, a death of a parent early in your life or physical abuse that you had to endure, sexual abuse, those sort of things, right? It was more subtle traumas, things like rejection, things like humiliation or not feeling like you had a voice to be heard, things like that kind of shaped your character, shaped your self-esteem, things like that. But with you, we're going to talk about one that is a bit more in your face and a bit more obvious, right? And that is abandonment, right? And, it's something that I've known you for 20 years and we haven't really talked about it in any great detail because it's obviously a sensitive topic, right? And I didn't know how you would feel about opening up about this. So the episode is called Abandoned. And let's just jump straight in and talk about what happened when you were a child.
Okay. All right, let's do it. So look, firstly, I'm going to say this, trauma is trauma, right? And I've seen it all, not all, I've seen a large part of it, and I've seen extended experience of events that will cause issues, and so I would say this, some traumas for me are worse than others, like emotional and mental traumas, I think are more punishing at times than physical. Physical, it's short-lived, like it's quick, sharp, in and out. Whereas mental, emotional, that's like a prison to yourself, And so let's get into it then. I guess, my experiences of hardship probably, definitely happened from very early on. And by the way, I would say this. Now I'm older, I get to see things. I look back, I reflect a lot, and those hardships that I've suffered weren't just my own, but you're also inheriting the traumas of your parents and from their childhoods as well, right?
Totally.
So it was massively impactful, which I didn't realize until adult life. The impact that thinking that love alone in your childhood is, it's a parent doing their job. That's so far from the truth. So you had two burdens to carry, your own traumas through your own experiences, but also those of your parents that were unresolved, and that influence that has on the character of you growing up, right? And so
So what age was it?
I'm gonna say this. So my earliest memories really were like 3 years old, I would say, where
Okay.
my parents divorced,
At,
and
at 3 years old.
yeah. So from what I knew of
That
my,
is really young.
yeah, I mean, look, at three, the crazy thing is, right, I can recall things very clearly in my head from that age. But I can't recall my father from that age. I can just recall traveling around in a strange car with my mum and my brother and just walking in and out of a different house almost daily. And, these, what I didn't realize what they were at the time, but these were like women's refuges. And
How old's your brother?
he was 2 years older, so 5.
2 years older.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So your mum with 2 kids, 5 and 3,
yeah, and
going in and out of women's refuges.
yeah, we were doing this daily. And what I didn't realize was we were on the run from my father at the time.
You're on the run
Yeah, well, she was divorcing him. She was trying to get away from him.
because he was abusing.
Yeah. So yeah, from what I knew of my father back then, he was a very traditional guy, very old school, very abusive towards my mother, and her escape was to run with the kids.
Right.
And that back in those days, she didn't run to a family. We ran to the support of the services that were available. And for a young girl, because she wasn't a woman, she was a girl. She was 17 when she had my brother and 19 when she had me.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, look,
So she's 22 years old when this is happening.
yeah, she's a kid, right? I mean,
Wow.
I can think about what I was doing then. I was carefree. This is a woman who's been bashed about and got 2 kids and
Just wants to get
get away. Yeah, and so we were moved around a lot. So you're just in these refuges, right? That's what they were back then.
Yeah.
And we eventually landed in the council, in homeless families, and you're put in temporary accommodations and hostels and B&Bs before you finally get somewhere permanent. Now, when you're young, you don't really see your life as rich or poor, right? You can go outside and play in the park and kick a football.
Yeah, life is
Happy.
life.
Life is
Yeah.
life, right? But the memories that I had from that stage were, sitting on the floor in a house where there's no furniture, eating food off a newspaper, and looking at your mum as a young kid saying, "Mum, why are you not eating?" And her saying to you, "Oh, I'm full up. I'm okay, I'm full up."
Just because you couldn't afford to.
Couldn't afford to feed you, right? You didn't acknowledge it back then. But, when you look at that and you think my mum was skinny like a twig and she would eat the scraps that you didn't eat. If there was anything left, she would eat. And that was the kind of...
Yeah, I hear that.
That was the life that we had back then, right? And so you didn't appreciate it then. But I look back now and those are my earliest memories. And so that becomes a fuel for you later on, by the way, right? So these things either make or break you, right? And we'll get to that, I'm sure. But... earliest memory happened to be that kind of hardship, running away from a man that's meant to be the guy that's protecting and providing, to then look to your mother who's now doing all she can to sacrifice herself for you as kids. Okay, sounds fair, but not a nice early memory. Fast forwarding on from that, I guess, we're living in council properties, right? Not in the nicest places, but it didn't matter to me. It was 4 walls and a roof. Playing out, pretty standard stuff. But now you've got your mother. I know she was working 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet. She didn't want to be in that system. We weren't born to be in that kind of environment. We were forced into it. So my mum became my hero very early on. Right? I'll always say this.
Of course. And well, how could she not, right?
She's got her trauma. She's got stuff to unravel. Never will get dealt with. I know that. But my hero from day dot. One thing I learned very young, though, was education to me was, you start knowledge, as you get a little bit on in life, you start realizing you are the poor kid. So I was going to primary school, right? My trainers were falling apart. The soles had fallen off. I've got holes in my trousers. I'm looking around at my kids. I'm not the smelly kid, but I am the kid with clothes that are falling apart, and they're all hand-me-downs, right? And second-hand stuff. So you're starting to realize, okay, there is something different about me. But now my mum's working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, So when every other kid's getting picked up or their parents are coming to sports day, these small things, or parent-teacher evenings, my mum's not turning up.
You're alone, basically.
I'm the kid that sat on his own eating his lunch at sports day on his own while everyone else is with their parents, right? Because my mum can't be there.
So then what does a kid what does a kid feel about themselves when that happens? Do they feel like they're not worthy, they're not good enough? Like, well, what is it? And probably it's not conscious at the time as well, right?
No, you can't rationalize it, right? But you can feel the emotional pain of it because, I'm a kid running up and down a sports field or swimming for my school swimming team. I want my parent to be there supporting me, right?
Yeah, because
Like I
everyone
do-
else's are, right?
Everyone else's are.
Yeah.
And so you notice it, right? So you can't understand why not me? Why not me, right?
Yeah.
Now, look, those are I can feel those emotions even now talking about it.
I
right?
bet I can see it, man.
I can feel those emotions.
Yeah.
But mum did what she had to do. And bless my mother, I will say this, right? So she started building her own business. This is where maybe the entrepreneurship in me comes about because she knew working in a retail shop isn't going to do anything for the family, right? Not in the 1980s. We're living in a horrible council estate. So she built her own business and she earned enough money to buy us a house. I'm like, whoa,
Wow.
cool.
What business does she do?
That was just like a homeware store selling
Okay.
knickknacks for people's homes, but it did okay from what I understood at the time.
Yeah.
Needless to say, bought a house, moved us into a slightly better area. I studied hard in primary school, got myself into a decent secondary school, but realized very quickly on there, I was the underdog, and so, I'm going to a secondary school where everyone's super smart, from decent families, got cash, same problems. I'm the poor kid, it's clearly standing out, but didn't stop friendships. But, I had to evolve this mentality of, I don't know, I guess acting as if you fitted in. So I'd do silly things like ask my mum for a briefcase at 12 years old for Christmas, because if I walk around my school with a briefcase, kids are going to respect me, right? I would work doubly hard than everyone else because I had to try and stay as smart as everyone else. So it got to the point where even at 12 years old, I'm getting given time off school because I'm passing out just because my brain can't function anymore. And I'm staying up till midnight trying to study. And next day go to school for 8 a.m. And the teachers are having to push me out of school. Doctors are writing letters saying this kid's worn out. And so I would always go above and beyond because at that time I realized we had nothing, right? So my mum is having to do it on her own. What can I do to contribute? Study. That's all I can do at that age, right?
But then, I mean, that reaction though, like there is another reaction, right, that you could have had, which was to go off the rails, right, and kind of rebel and just sort of not care about education and not care about helping your mum and just be like angry, right? Because that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what are the emotions that you're going through, right? So clearly there's got to be some anger. There's got to be some fear. There's got to be some feeling of like, why me? Why am I the kid that doesn't have his parents around? Why did my dad not stick around?
All right. So,
right?
I mean, you've hit a good timeline here because at this point, this is where the bad emotions, because being young, when you're born into an environment, you survive that environment, right? That's all you know, right? So that I wasn't necessarily exposed to. I had bad memories, but I wasn't exposed to something that I would have known to be a hardship because I never had anything better. However, my mum's business wasn't working. My father, was a man of means. He had money. He wasn't poor, right? This guy was selfish but successful.
Oh, really?
And so he could have changed our life in a heartbeat. I remember this. My mum turned to him, said, listen, my business isn't working. I'm falling behind on the mortgage. Small. It's like a 20 grand mortgage or something back then, right? But interest rates were through the roof. It's in the 90s. Can you help pay some of this mortgage off, debts that I've got, to keep the roof over your children's home? I haven't seen my father since I was a kid. Don't know this guy.
And so what age are you now?
12, 13.
So 10 years on, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the first time she's asked him for help.
First time. Yeah. She's reached out to him, not for her sake. She's done everything on her own, right? But she's reached out to keep the roof over the heads of her children.
Yeah. Which are also his children.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is a guy that's got cash, not poor.
Yeah.
Refused it. And the house got repossessed. All right. And so at that point, I lost it. This is where the turning point for me was.
It's where the anger kicks in. So before it's not anger, before it's just like, okay, you're just kind of dealing with what's the situation.
Yeah.
But now you're actually questioning this guy has the power to fix it all,
Yeah.
and yet he's making a choice to not give a shit about his children.
Yeah. And there's a pebble in the ocean.
How do you deal with that?
Oh man.
Did you want to punch him?
Yeah, there was a lot of hate.
Did you actually punch him?
We'll get to that later on. There does come a point. But look, let's fast forward. So straight back to square one, right? So at that point, house got repossessed. We were straight back to the council, homeless families, living in B&Bs, hostels. My mum was super depressed. We left where we were living in southwest London to move to North London, just in a whole different place, whole different area. No one around us that I knew. I was out of school for I left a school that I loved to end up literally, again, living in hostels. And this time I'm 13 years old, right? I'm sleeping in bed with a baseball bat next to me because there's an alcoholic family sleeping next door, and all they do is kick in the doors. These doors are like paper, right? So I'm like, anyone's walking in at any point. You know, my food weekly was bought by a carrier bag. Someone would just turn up and say, here's your shopping for the week. And you're having bath with ants, and it was just not nice. The back doors just don't shut, so anyone could have walked in at any time. You're basically sleeping like with one eye open the whole time, living on handouts. So this was a life that I hadn't quite experienced for some time, right? I got away from it. My mum picked us up to then have my father take us straight back down. And so, you know, at this point, I'm like, okay, 6 months in, I was off school for a long time because the schools locally in this area were just terrible, right? And so I ended up having to go to a really bad school. And that hurt me a lot because I loved education. I loved studying. At this point, once I went to this school, I hated it. You know, I've turned up 3 years in to a school where everyone's made their friends, and these are the roughest of they're not nice kids. You don't want to be around this kind of kid. And, you know, I kind of shelled out. I just became anything other than the boy that I was. You know, you kind of recreated yourself to fit into an environment, but it wasn't you anymore.
Yeah, you're kind of in self-preservation mode, right? Because like, if you show your true self, it's like going to be a sign of weakness, and they're going to pounce on you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it was kind of like that. It was like a fight a day. You know, everything was just a struggle. And so that was hard because, you know, at that point, all I had was still education. And I hated it. My mum was just super depressed. We were living in hostels for about 3 years. My father just didn't care, you know, and I was dealing with that.
What did your mum say was the reason that your dad didn't care?
No, I'll be honest, I don't think we've ever really unpacked it, but, you know,
really?
My mum, bless her, is always a forgiving person, you know, and always wants to justify someone's actions or forgive someone's actions, right? So she's a natural people pleaser, but always trying to give second chance. You know, she's the kind of woman that opened the door to the enemy. Whereas for me, I held this deep inside me because this is a guy I didn't know, but everything I knew about him was just destructive and abusive and selfish, you know? So the only experience of a man that I really had in my life that should have been a real figure to me was he kicked your kids onto the street, man. That's tough. You know, when I tell you, like, literally, I was sleeping on floors, you know, just hungry all the time, just nasty. Now being dragged around, having to fight every day to just make it through school. This is the weirdest thing for me. So you naturally think, you know what, I'm getting to that age now where I have to take responsibility, or me and my brother have to kind of get to that point where we are responsible for this family. The man is not going to do it anymore. And so...
And was your brother's reaction the same as yours in general?
It's a little bit different, actually, because he deals with it very differently, but he knew his father, you know, and so he always had him and his dad, he was a daddy's boy when they were young, and so he had some sort of relationship there with his dad. I never did.
For like a couple of years.
Yeah, but even later on in life, I think, you know, he was seeing his dad, he cared, like, he wanted to know who his dad was. I didn't. Okay. My mum was my hero, and that's all that mattered. You had your chance with me. That went.
Yeah.
You know, and this guy at any point in time could have just stopped the hardship, you know, and turned it all around. So he didn't care to do it. Or he cared more to hold the money for himself, to hold his, you know.
What did he do, by the way? Why was he so rich, or why was he so wealthy? Just out of interest.
When he came to England, he opened factories making shoes. That was his trade. Yeah, and so made them shoes for like the high streets. And I can't say he always stayed on the straight path. I think he swayed at times, but he did well. He did well for himself, but kept it for himself.
But it's so hard to relate to this because I'm going through a divorce. My kids are 7 and 10. And literally the only thing keeping me going last year was the closeness that I had with my children. Right? Your life, it feels like your life's falling apart. You never expected to be in this position 17 years into a marriage. And then the thought of walking away from them, I just can't get my head around it, right? Like, I just don't know what kind of human being can do that, right? And so, I mean, obviously, thankfully, neither of us would be that sort of person. But like, when you know that your dad is that person, how do you deal with the hatred that you feel for that person? Like, how does that manifest? Like, because obviously, there's no point, there's no upside in you beating the crap out of him, right? Okay, maybe there is, I don't know. But so you've got this hatred for someone who's responsible for you, who should have done right by you and just decided you were worthless and you weren't worth, doing that for.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you deal with that, dude?
So at that time, I didn't. You just let the hate fester, and it got worse and worse and worse because each day was a fight for me, right? So, whether it be eating, there was a point in time where I'd go 2 days without food. My mother wasn't living with me and my brother in North London. Her parents were very sick, right? So she was staying with them in South London to nurse them. And she would call up home and say, "How are you boys? Have you got food? Have you eaten?" Yeah, I'd lie and say, "Yeah, Mum, don't worry, we're okay. We got food in the fridge. The fridge was empty. There was nothing." And I remember this. I'd go 2 days with no food. And by the second day, I'd be like, "Shit, what do I do?" Excuse me. But what do I do?
Mate, I already said the F word, don't worry.
And so, this is how resourceful I was back then, right? And I would find a blood bank and say, I'm going to go and give blood because if I go and give blood,
they'll feed you.
They'll feed me. Yeah?
Really?
Now, here's the problem with that. 2 days no eating, near enough 2 days no eating, right? So you're like this, you're shaking.
Yeah, you faint.
As soon as you put a needle in, you passed out. But I got fed. I just remember it so clearly. Biscuits, crisps, and squash, orange squash. And so that was one way I did it. The other way was I'll just write a check. Back in those days, you'd give a check to Pizza Hut. And the check was always going to bounce, but I'd get some food, right?
You pay for your food with check that's going to bounce.
Check, knowing that it's going to bounce because I had no money in the bank. Of course I don't, right? But, even just getting to college back then, I remember this, man. And I couldn't afford the bus journey from my house all the way to the college. And so I would have to walk like 2 miles before I could finally afford to get the bus and then finally get it from a spot where I could afford it to make it to college and back again. So there were challenges, right? Every day you come in. The thing that I learned, you had to figure out how to find solutions to problems, right? That was always my thing.
Yeah.
But of course, the trade-off to that is each day my hatred for my father's brewing, right?
But are you almost turning that hatred into fuel, though?
Yeah, listen, I'll always say this, I'm fortunate in the sense of I could turn my hardships into my biggest assets. Yeah, and this came down to, I remember reading The Art of War one time, and I was probably about 17, went to the library, rented the book, and I remember one of the lessons in there was like guerrilla warfare, make your weaknesses your strength. And so I always knew I could survive. In any situation, I've had to survive it. And I've had to survive without the one thing that every young man needs, which is a good, strong father, And so you get to a point where you either going to survive or you're going to go the other way, right? And just accept your fate. And it was never going to be me because I loved my mother too much. And I wanted her not to be in that situation. And so, because she took it worse than all of us, right? She wasn't just dealing with my father's issues. She was dealing with her whole life of issues as well, which is just a whole different animal. And so I'd say this, very young, very early on, you become resourceful. And you start thinking about what's important to you, what is your sort of morality, and what are the rules you live by. Yeah. And when it came to my father, for instance, this hatred. So actually, the father situation gets even worse, by the way. So my mum, being the forgiving woman she is, she decided at some point, I must have been about 18, coming on 18, that me and my brother need our father back in our life. To my brother, this was a great idea.
At the age of, you were 18?
17, 18, something like that, right? And so...
So 15 years after you walked out.
So to me, this man's a ghost, right? And so when I needed him...
I'd say more a devil, no?
Yeah, well, when I needed him, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Now...
Okay.
He used to come over to the house, and I hated this, right? So we'd cross paths on the stairs, not even acknowledge each other. He was very old school and believed that because he's biologically my father.
Yeah, you should show him respect.
And to me, I'm like, you haven't earned this respect.
No, exactly.
You put me in the gutter more than once, right?
The opposite of respect is
you buried your children into hardship. You've put us into a world where we never needed to be because you worship money over family, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy, crazy mentality.
Yeah,
and so you want me to acknowledge you? No. And rather than show him he was my enemy, I just treated him as though he didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now one day, here's the worst part. I'm sat down. I remember this clearly. I'm sat in the living room. I'm on the sofa. My mum is sat to my left. My father sat on the right-hand side on an armchair. They're arguing. My mum and my dad are arguing. And he got up out of his chair. He's a big guy, by the way. It's not small. He got out of the chair, walked straight past me. And I remember this. I'm reading PC World magazine, which was like my encyclopedia back then. And I had these glasses on. I was a geeky kid, right? And he walked straight past me, walked straight up to my mother. I'll never forget this. Put his hand round her throat and started pummeling into her.
What?
Yeah. And this is where, I mean, we made a joke about it earlier, right? But the first fight I ever truly had, and you got to remember, this guy, I had hatred for him. But to look over, I remember just looking over like, this isn't really happening. This big guy leaning over my mother, the woman that is everything to me.
Yeah. Did he not think you were going to have something to say about that?
It's the mentality of the man, right? So I just remember calmly putting the book to one side, standing up, taking my glasses off, and I went for him. And I went from like, I'd never ever dream I could go for another person.
I bet. The rage inside you all came out, right?
Oh my God. I offloaded badly and it became a war. But the funny thing was, he went for me. It wasn't a one-way thing.
He came back at you.
He came back. We were rolling around. It was a war, a real war.
You've never told me about this.
Yeah, and my brother had to jump in. My mother was screaming. They were trying to tear us apart. That day, he left the house straight after that, never came back, never saw him again. Now... So from that day onwards, me and my brother had to man up, right? That's where we had to really take control of the situation. Say, you know what, this man's gone, done for. My brother still had a relationship, by the way, with him, but that's my brother's relationship with him. He kept it respectfully, kept it away from me. I never asked about it, never knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Yeah, and then that for me, you know, and I'll always say this: the one thing I will thank my father for all the wrong reasons, he forced me to have to figure out how to not just survive, but how to really make your way in life, you know, not allow anything or any situation to hold you down. Mm-hmm. You know, really just, you know,
resilience.
Resilience, man. Really, resilience, you know. And I think in those situations when you know you can survive something, not just survive, thrive in a situation, come out always on top, nothing. You in a weird way, you do end up with a bit of a chip on your shoulder. This you've got to manage, but that self-belief, that in itself is so powerful. You know, you become impenetrable. But we know there's trade-offs to that, which is the abandonment. You know, when you've been betrayed and let down by the one person or one of the two people in your life that are always meant to be there, and it hasn't just happened once, twice, 3 times. You know, you're in a situation. Yeah, it's
But I mean, I guess so. Really, the self-worth was all coming from your mum, basically, right? Like, because the way I would have thought, there would be a risk that there would be low self-esteem, there would be low self-worth, right? And to have that resilience and make it in the world, I feel like you have to have something that tells you that you are worthy, right?
I don't. Do you know what? I don't completely agree with this because I'm going to say this: just because you make it, isn't always about the value of yourself. Sometimes, and I will say this,
Yeah, that's true.
the fact that you are trying so hard to make it is because you don't value yourself.
Yeah, just the way you are.
You're trying to prove something
that's true.
all the time. And
Okay.
that has absolutely been a
Okay.
big feature for me.
Okay.
Yeah, a huge one.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That
that
makes
whole...
sense. Okay. So then the self-worth is still something you are working on, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, finding your true self is definitely something very recent in my life. Absolutely. Because
Okay.
if I look at my adult life now, so the fact that, we went through similar paths, right? I managed to find my way into the city and build a career through that and then stay within financial services, all that stuff. But really, it's even doing that and even half that journey, even my work journey, has it always been true to me? Has it always been me playing up to the environment around me?
How do I want to be perceived? How do I want to be seen? Right.
That chameleon mentality, it works, but it's not always a good thing to do, right? Just always becoming what people want you to be.
Yeah, because you can get further away from yourself. Right.
You do. So here's the trick to it. Being a chameleon is fine if you know who your true self always is. Yeah. So always know when you're coming back to your true self. But being a chameleon and losing who you really are and just becoming that person who survives in situations and plays up to the environment and plays up to the people around them, you become a people pleaser. Very, very dangerous game, because at some point...
Have you been a people pleaser?
Oh, man, come on. Look, and I don't wear this like a badge of honor, right? Because I've wasted so much life doing this, And this is where I will say, this is the poor... As much as I love my mother, I've taken this from her, right? Because her mentality has always been to forgive, to please, to try and make everyone around her happy, but sacrificing yourself or your true self, or your principles or your boundaries even, right? And so I've always tried to value myself by pleasing others. And the problem with that is, especially when you suffer with abandonment issues, the people that you attract, allow closest to you, are the ones that can't hurt you, right? And so you're always bringing the wrong type because you don't want to be vulnerable. Yeah, it's standard. So you always feel at peace or not at peace, most in control around the wrong type of person.
So what type of person is that?
I mean, okay, if we're talking about, let's say, women, let's just start with the female side. It's always going to be the one that's transactional, let's say, the one that is, it's got poor character, the one that is just there for the free ride, the one that doesn't really care about you, the one that isn't going to try and touch on you emotionally. So the one that isn't going to try and expose you or make you vulnerable. That's the wrong type.
And the reason you bring that is so that you don't have to then care about them that much.
Yeah.
Right?
Easy to cut, and actually, you just become the person they need you to be for that short period of time. And when it's time to walk away, it's never a difficult exercise. And you know what? They're not going to miss you. They'll find someone else to go and replay that scenario with. For you, there's nothing really lost, in terms of you haven't lost a good person, so you don't have to feel the pain of losing a good person, right?
And is some of it that you expect you're going to lose them regardless anyway, because that's what you've known?
Yeah, and it's the same with men, by the way, right? So it works both hands. Yeah, absolutely. So you always know there's a time limit to it, yeah? Because whether you get worn out by them or they've kind of worn out their time with you, you may wear out your time with them as well, right? But I guess the other part of that is they're not showing you who you really are. And I think that's the problem with allowing the right person in. It's that vulnerability exposes all your unresolved issues, all your unresolved traumas. You don't want someone to see you for
who you truly are.
Yeah.
Warts and all.
Dangerous game, man, especially when you haven't.
So you've got your defenses up, basically.
Absolutely.
Right? So your defenses are up. You have almost told yourself that any relationship you get into, it has got a shelf life. It's never going to go the distance. You're going to get abandoned again. So you put your defenses up. You never let anyone get too close.
Yeah. And,
right.
It's hard to see it at first, by the way. I think for many years I went living in the same cycle and didn't really, I don't know if I didn't want to acknowledge it or just couldn't acknowledge it, but you get quite good at living in the lie. And so
You start to believe that this is the life you want.
I always try and take myself back to it. And I always try and ask myself, did I know or didn't I know? I think the reality is, you do know, but you put it in a box so well that it just doesn't have to explode. You learn to survive it, right? And so until it goes on, for me, goes on so long that you can't ignore it anymore. And who's it really? Is it helping or hindering? You realize, what? Life is short. Life is precious. I'm better than this. I owe it to myself to have a piece of life that is actually worth something. And so, you then got to confront the demons, right? And that's where we get to the point of, finding a solution to the problem and trying to make yourself that stronger human, that more balanced human, and not the one that's running and hiding, but really you think you're on top.
We've talked a lot about the issues. Let's talk a little bit about some of the solutions and some of the coping mechanisms, right? So something that obviously I know you well for is all the work you've done with homeless people. And to be honest, if I had known the backstory to this extent, I would have understood it more, right? So, yeah, like, is that where that comes from? Like, because you've experienced it and you've done it, raising awareness for homeless people, raising money, giving your time and your energy, is that, what's going on there in your mind?
Yeah. So I think number one priority for me was you do something because you can. Yeah. You do something because you don't want other people to suffer in the same way that you did, because not everyone's built as strong as you. Not everyone can handle the situation the way maybe you did and survive it the way you did. And I see it a lot, right? So for me, number one, because I understand firsthand what that felt like to go through, I can't sit back and do nothing. Yeah. And so, so for many years, what I was doing with the homeless charities was always my secret, right? I never really exposed it for a long time. But, if we go through it, I think there was over 12 years now with my Christmases spent at the Homeless Day Centre, just handing out free meals a day and helping people that are extremely vulnerable try and find their path back into the system, to teaching boxing to homeless people for 2 years, and helping people find their self-confidence again, finding a path away from addiction in a holistic way, which has worked miracles, and
Well, the thing that stuck with me that you did was when you actually spent, was it 2 nights, 3 nights? How many nights? 5 nights. You spent 5 nights sleeping rough.
Yeah.
And you filmed a documentary, right?
Yeah, I did.
You're going to have to send me that so we can link it. Right?
The crazy thing about that, right? Because I thought, this is a great way to share awareness or create awareness around what it's really like to be on the street. Because by this time, friends would keep asking me, what's it like to be homeless? What are homeless people like? Are they junkies? It's so many misconceptions, right? So to be able to actually share an experience of what it is to be homeless with somebody that they know, for me was what it was all about. However, what I didn't realize was it was almost also a journey of self-discovery, because there are layers to homelessness, right? So there's sofa surfing. There's my version where, you lose your home, you go to homeless families, you get a hostel, B&B. But for most people, there's rough sleeping as well. For a lot of people, there's rough sleeping. And what you've got to realize with homeless people, majority of them, 80% of people that are suffering from homelessness have mental health issues as well. And I would always say this. So that whole experience made me have a whole new understanding for myself. And it's almost about self-discovery, because I did this in a January, I can't remember what year, 2016 or 17, I think it was, but it was the coldest week of the year. So it was like
I remember.
Yeah.
That was insane.
And I was completely ill-equipped, right? I was wearing all the wrong clothes. And I just remember laying out there at 2 a.m, couldn't sleep, and how quickly sleeping on the street in cold weather grips you and takes over you, right? And so that's why I say, for me, you then pally up with a bunch of other people. Next thing you know, you're swigging booze. Next thing you know...
Stay warm.
Yeah, to stay warm. Yeah, and to make the time drift by, because it's so boring, yeah? And so...
Yeah, because people judge homeless people so much when they see them, like, boozing, smoking, any of that stuff. Like, look, they're wasting the money. Why would I give them money? They're just going to drink or do drugs with it and stuff. But they've got to do something to cope and survive.
So most people become addicts because they're on the street. Yeah. You don't go to the street with addiction. That's not normally the way it happens, but it's a coping mechanism. When you're on the street and you are vulnerable and you are afraid at night, you're sleeping in the street corner, people are walking past you, you don't know if you're going to survive it, right? And so you learn to cope. And part of that is alcohol keeps you warm, puts you to sleep, puts you in good spirits. Next thing you know, an occasional swig becomes a regular swig. Now it's an addiction. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's now I understand that because I was there, and your body is aching. I'm walking miles each day trying to get to a homeless shelter to have some breakfast or something. And so it was a real eye opener for me. Absolutely.
I think you should run rough sleeping boot camps so that everyone gets to experience what that's like.
Do you know, it's humbling. Absolutely. And in a weird way, I like to humble myself at times. I'll always say this. I think, it's easy to get lost in your own life, and it's easy to progress in your own life, but forget what's important to you. And also, in a weird way, not just where you came from, but the people that aren't in your everyday circle, right? And so the people that are easily forgotten about and ignored. And it's important for me to always have that connection.
And it makes you appreciate what you do have, right?
Yeah, for me, yeah, it does. It definitely keeps me focused and in a weird way motivated, because I can get complacent as well, and also it's a reminder of how quickly you can end up back there, and so sometimes, I'm liable for it. I make bad decisions at times. I don't always make the right decision. I can be impulsive. I'm not the complete package. I didn't have the best education. I've had to learn as I go. And sometimes you can make you can make what you think is the right decision based on, what you think is integrity at the time, but it doesn't always work out well for you, and it can backfire. And so I will always say this, you're always one bad decision. For me, I always feel like, you could be one bad decision away from being back on the street. And so I need that reminder sometimes of that hardship. It does. For me, it opens up a lot of old wounds.
100%. Okay, and then that's the kind of the charity stuff that you do. But then also, like you mentioned, you're an entrepreneur, right? So what is it about your entrepreneur journey, do you think, that these experiences and this past has kind of influenced the most? Is because obviously you've had some businesses that work, some haven't worked.
Yeah.
How does this all play into that?
So, firstly, I'll always say this: to be an entrepreneur, it's not something you go to school and decide. Back in my day, anyway, you don't go to school and say, I want to be a business owner. I want to be in a risky environment where there's no guarantee of what comes tomorrow, right? But I think entrepreneurs are bred out of necessity. And also, if I think about this, in my schools I went to, I remember saying this to a teacher once: I want to be a broker in the city because I watched The Wolf of Wall Street. My teacher laughed at me and said, never, it's not going to happen for you, right? That was fuel. For me, that was fuel. I looked and thought, you wait. And I can still remember this teacher now. And I've always wanted to go back and say I did it, but it was fuel for me. And I worked around, I was in school with kids that would have taken it and said, okay, let me go a different path. I couldn't do that, right? So did I ever think I'd be an entrepreneur? No, I just always knew I couldn't, given the life that I've lived up to that point, I had to be a master of my own creation, good or bad. I wanted to follow a path of my own choosing, because the path that was written for me and the way I would say the system is built, it was built to hold people like me down. Yeah. And so if I was to break out of that, I had to do it on my own terms. Yeah. And so
there's the control thing again, right? Kind of, because there's uncertainty associated with being an entrepreneur, but you are still calling the shots.
Yeah. Okay, yes, so there is the control, is on your terms, right? So there's a control. There's also the chip on your shoulder as well, right? Where you've always been that underdog, and everyone's always told you, you can't do this, you won't be able to do that, you won't amount to this, and that's not written for you. And so
you want to prove everyone wrong.
I had to prove everyone wrong, right? That was my fuel. I turned all the negativity to my fuel. Now, it's good and bad, because fuel is great, but you've got to learn to control it and guide it, right? Because it can consume everything around it as well, because you start making impulsive decisions.
High risk taking. Right.
This was always
Trying to
my
hit a home run, right, every time.
every time. Because guess what? You're not afraid of going back to zero.
Because you've been there.
You've been there, right?
Yeah,
Now, this
yeah.
is the gift and the curse, right? So I think all great entrepreneurs will say this, whether you're Zuckerberg, whether you're an Elon, it's okay to go back to zero because guess what? Best lessons are there. And I will always say this. I've sunk many times over, right? And so
How many times have you been?
no,
to
not
zero?
many, right? But I've made some monumental mess
Yeah.
ups, right?
Yeah.
But I'm blessed in the sense of I learn my lesson. I'd like to think I take the lesson. I take the beating. I take the lesson, and the path back is better. Yeah, because you
Yeah, you got to grow. If you can't grow from the knocks,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing, right?
and this is part of the parcel of being an entrepreneur, right? But I wish in my younger year of being an entrepreneur, in my early years of entrepreneurship, I just had a better team around me, maybe better heads, wiser heads, and certainly a better foundation. Because for what I was able to impact quickly, I would say this, things sometimes grew too quickly for me. I was just well out of my depth, and so the gift and the curse, man. And so the things that fuel you can also destroy you. So learn to let go of trying to control everything.
But where are you now? Like, for example, are you in a place where, you say as an entrepreneur, you want to prove everyone wrong, or that might maybe how it started.
Yeah.
But have you found yourself in a place now where you're now doing business in a way where you are being more authentic to yourself and you're trying to find balance in your life? I mean, you mentioned relationships, how you never got too close. I know you're in a loving relationship now, right? So are you finding a way to kind of morph those things and kind of get closer to your true self instead of being someone to prove something to people?
Yeah, you nailed it, right? So absolutely, you're spot on. In my early years, everything about growth was ego driven. Yeah, I always liken it to the football player mentality. If you think back in the days, these young boys were playing for Arsenal, Man United, but they were young and they exploded quickly. Yeah, and they made a fortune quickly, and they blew it all quickly. Made all the wrong decisions. Made wrong life choices. It all crumbles around quickly. I was that kid. Yeah, just not kicking a ball. Yeah, and so I got to where I wanted to get to, but it was driven by ego, and it was driven by the chip on the shoulder, having to prove the point. Yeah, and so I've learned that lesson, right? And so you get older, absolutely. So where am I now? 100%. What I would say is two things on a personal level. I've definitely been fortunate and gifted to have an amazing woman with me who has gone through hardships with me, but also taught me a lot about vulnerability, trust, especially.
Basically letting you know that it's okay to open up and express your feelings.
Yeah, and the thing that I'll always say is that that took a lot of, before her, a lot of work on myself to even get to a stage where I would think that is even possible. But it also makes you realize what a waste of life there was before that, right? And so for me, I've always lived with a small circle. I've always been happy on my own, which is also a dangerous game to be. But to have that one person with you that you trust completely, that is a motivator to you in many ways, but also keeps you in check. Because sometimes even I still need, someone that keeps me honest and keeps me in check. And so, amazing fight.
But you have to be willing to hear that.
Yeah.
It's all well saying someone keeps you in check, but if you're not willing to hear it, you're not willing to look at yourself and see it. I mean, I'm talking from my own personal experiences, right?
Yeah.
If I got called out on shit, I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about, right?
Do you know, Imran, and I say this as mates, yeah? Because we have this discussion, like, I always fear the friend who just smiles in your face every time you're with them, right? You want the friend who's going to sit down with you and tell you you're wrong when you're wrong. Call you out when you're slipping up, right? Not the friend that's going to pat you on the back and tell you it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Yeah, it's going to be okay. But let me tell you right now, you're messing up, And, that's a really important friend to me. Everything else, I don't need that friend. You're not a friend. And I've had too many of those friends in my life that would just be there for the fun time and the ride and the benefit. Yeah. How many of them really have been there when things aren't right, great for me, or I'm feeling that? No. So I always say, fear the friend who's all teeth when they're around you. You don't want that friend. You need, So when they're behind your back, they're not smiling anymore, but for you, So be careful of that one. On a work front, there does come a point in your life where you start questioning what's important to you. And I'll always say this, wanting to create something that creates financial freedom, or wealth, that's not a bad thing. Biblically, it's not a bad thing, but it's the path that you choose to go after that's important. And so, absolutely, I think what is really important now in order to stay authentic is your heart and your integrities need to be aligned. And that transitions in both work and it transitions in both your personal life. If you can align what is important in your heart and have that tally up with your integrities, you're always going to be on a good path.
I got one last question. Do you think you're ever going to find it in your heart to be able to forgive your dad?
Okay, so I actually have. And so this was one of my greatest lessons in life, right? So my father was dying and he had cancer. And I actually didn't believe it at first. And my mother sat me down one day and said, look, just so you know, your dad is in hospital. He's got late stage cancer. He's got days to live. He wants to see you. And I was like, yeah, whatever, and I don't know this guy. It's okay. I don't believe it, blah, blah, blah. I was cold to the idea. Now, for me as a person who's always cared for other people around me, right? Friends need help, I'm there for you. Family need help, I'm there for you. Build a business, bring in all my family, bring in all my friends. And everyone needs a job, no problem, I got you. No food on your table, don't worry, I'm feeding you. I've always been the first to step up for anyone that needed it. But to this guy, I'm cold. I'm really cold. And I couldn't find it in my heart to say, I'm going to be there for you. However, my mum pleaded with me over there, said, please, come to the hospital. And so I went to the hospital, but I walked in, saw him in the bed, looked at him, just walked out, all right? I still had too much hate in me at this time. And I couldn't see a man that was dying.
How long ago was this?
No, we're going back like 6 years, I think.
Oh,
now.
okay, it's been that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't see a man that was dying. And I just couldn't get past my own self, right?
Yeah.
Now,
the ego. Yeah.
Here's the great thing. About a week goes by, and my mum sits me down again. And she's like, look, he is dying. And we don't know it's any moment now. You need to let him go in peace. And she said, and my mum, I don't always listen to my mother, right, by the way. I've always been one to do everything on my terms. And she actually sat me down and I listened. This one time she said, look, he has done worst of all to me. My mum speaking, right? And if anyone shouldn't forgive him, it should be me.
That's right.
But I can find it in myself to forgive him. Now, if you don't forgive him, you are at risk of having your brother, who you love dearly, hold resentment against you. So if you can't do it for him, do it for the people you love, me and your brother, because we have a future. We have our whole lives ahead of us, So,
wise woman.
I listened. No,
She's a
lo and
wise
behold,
woman.
here's the crazy thing, right? So I listened. So I remember this. I said, okay, look, I'm going to go and phone him. So I went to the pub down the corner. I need a beer before I do this, right? Because there's everything inside of me. I'm having to bury my own emotions about this guy. And I say this, hate is a very strong word I don't like to use. But I had hate for this guy, real hatred, because my whole life had been a suffer. Even working is a battle every day, right? And I wasn't always getting it right. I was blaming him for every bad decision I ever made. Anyway, I phoned him up. I was like, Dad, weirdest thing for me to say, it's me. And he's like, first time I'll ever say this, I heard a voice down the other end of the phone that I just heard vulnerability and honesty and sadness and all that. The conversation went something along those lines. He was like, listen, son, I just want you to know, I know I've never really been there for, I've never been there for you. I failed as a father, I failed as a husband. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know I love you with all my heart. And I'm sorry for the life that I've put you through. And, I wish I could turn the clocks back now, because everything I put before you all doesn't mean anything right now. And, I want your forgiveness. And I thought, okay, wow. This was the conversation I never expected, by the way, right? In my head, I've played out these conversations over and over again. And it was never this conversation. This was the guy I used to walk around the streets trying to look for to beat him up. Right? It's like it's really bad and dark. So I was like, okay, Dad, listen, I forgive you, and I want you to know I love you, and it's okay. You don't need to worry anymore. You and me, we're good. And I could hear him crying down the phone. It's like, look, son, just please, I know I've got no right to ask, but before I die, I would like to have one meal with my son. You know, I'm a Turkish family, right? It's a big thing. And so I was like, okay, I'll come and see you tomorrow. I'll call you in the morning. We'll go and have a lunch together. Yeah. First meal for me and my dad.
Ever?
Ever. And,
Wow. First and last.
yeah, and whoa.
Okay.
There's a punchline. So we put the phone down. I'm sat there, I'm like, whoa, a weight had lifted off of me. Like when I say that release,
Yeah.
because I got rid of my hatred in that minute. And actually I saw a side of this man that was human. Yeah, I saw humanity in him. I saw
Because you'd built him up as this devil, right? This hanging over you.
Yeah. And so there is a real lesson in this, right? But that night he went to bed. I got a phone call 5 o'clock in the morning from my brother saying he's dead on the floor.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So you didn't get to have the meal?
No.
But you gave him the peace so he could go.
Yeah. That's the weirdest thing, right? So, I mean, he got his peace and he died that night. And I went to saw him. I saw him on the floor dead. You know, we buried him. And I will say this. This is why, for me, I will always say this. Look, one, my brother loved the fact that I did that. My mother was obviously thankful that I did that for me. I never expected this to be for myself, right? Because I thought I'm doing for others. The fact that I took that stance, that stand, and that step forward to put the olive branch out and put aside my personal feelings, which are justified, by the way, but
100% justified.
put it to one side and say, I'm going to be the bigger man in this situation.
Yeah.
I'm going to forgive because, you know what, I don't want to carry that with me. Yeah, I didn't think about it. But wow, if I didn't do that, to this day, I would be carrying hatred. And I would say this, I go to his grave often. Yeah, I don't tell anyone I go, but I go and I talk to my dad.
Wow.
It's the weirdest thing. I feel like because I saw that side of him, I can now see him in a completely different light. Yeah, and so
wow, that's incredible. It's almost like he didn't even get the chance to fuck that image. So it's like once you let your anger out, once you forgave him, your image of him changed, and then he literally died the next day. And now that image of him is the one that you talk to when you go to the grave.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And that actually gives you strength.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is really, I mean, it's hard to really comprehend, but yeah, it is exactly that. And this is what I'll always say to everyone that asks. You know, I hear it a lot from people say, oh, I hate this, my mum, I hate this. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what? If you've got a day where you've got a chance to call them, even if it is just to tell them why you're upset with them, you know, just get things off your chest and try and find a better foot forward. Trust me, if that day's gone tomorrow, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. And I have a lot of regrets in my life, but there are some that you just don't want to carry, right? And so, or listen, you can't turn the clock back. So if you have a chance today to get rid of something that you're carrying that's hurting you, it may not be hurting that other person, but it's hurting you.
Yeah.
Get it off your chest.
Exactly. That anger that you're holding is doing more damage to you than it is to the person that you hate.
Dude, I was in my own prison.
Yeah.
It was killing me. I had no idea of all the other areas of my life that it was hurting, right?
Yeah.
But of course, relationships, 100%. Addictions that I was, using to detach myself from reality,
Yeah.
Recklessness in my decisions of working life.
Okay, so now that was supposed to be the last question, but now I'm going to have to ask you another one. So since you let that go, since you let that anger and resentment go, so, what has the impact been on your life? Like how is that then translated into how you now live compared to how you lived before?
So, look, I would say this. The immediate power of that release of weight that I experienced during that one phone call made me realize that there is a lot more that I need to deal with. Yeah. And, I don't want to be my parents, my father or mother. My father made many mistakes. He left it too late to make right his wrongs, right? My mother, bless her, has gone through trauma after trauma after trauma. I don't think she'll ever unravel it, but I can't be that person, And I always says, as parents, I'm sure you'll get this. As parents, you become the parent for your children that your parents should have been for you, that you needed them to be, right?
Yeah, because you learn from the
Their
mistakes.
right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I learned was, now I'm an adult, I got to take responsibility for me. Yeah, I can't outwardly blame them for the man I am today anymore. I've done that most of my life, just outwardly saying I am doing this because you did that to me, and it doesn't work. No one cares to hear it, right? No one's going to fix you but you. And so, because I saw firstly the power by accident of that one experience and the positivity that came from it, I now, dare I say, was addicted, but I now believed that there's more that could be done. So I guess for me, that's where, I had to sit down with my mum again, and she's like, I want you to go to therapy. I was like, Mum.
So that was the start of your therapy
Yeah.
and your journey of your growth.
It kind of was, because I think I had a breakup as well at the time, which didn't work well for me. It was kind of hurting me a bit. I wasn't in the best place. And my mum sat me down and says, look, you've gone through a lot, and I want you, if my mum asked me, I'm going to do it, all right? It's just like, I want you to go and do this. We come from a family where you just don't share. Yeah, my mum won't do it. I begged her to go, tried to coaxing her into it. She won't do it. My brother, I don't know what the hell he's up to, but, we just don't talk about these things. And so I thought, I'm going to do it. And I found a great guy. And, it was a clinical hypnotherapy. I'm sorry, not clinical hypnotherapy, wrong thing altogether. Integrity in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the best things I ever did. I mean, I will say this. So I remember going in there saying, listen, I'm a broken guy, I'm traumatized, I'm wrecked, blah, 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 blah. Not knowing what to expect, right? But, I sat down, gave him my life story for an hour. Bit deeper than we're going right now, by the way. But certainly I gave him everything, right? First thing he said to me at the end was, and this guy was great because he would give back. Yeah, he wasn't just listening. He was coming back. But, you go through that process of finding the trauma, finding the trigger, and then I guess the action that you take because of it, right? Things that I learned very quickly were, one, you're not broken. Yeah. You've got issues, sure, but you're not broken and you're not a bad person, because I kept going in and saying, I do this wrong, I do that wrong, I don't let people come close to me, I'm cold, I'm unemotional, I'm unavailable, all these things. And one of the first things that he taught me was stop overthinking, because I couldn't sleep at night as well. I was having all these I was insomniac. And first thing was, look, when you go to bed at night and your mind is playing tricks on you, and the mind is not your friend. I learned this immediately, and I started reading on this stuff. But the brain is a powerful, powerful tool, and people like us, we used it a lot throughout our careers, right? It was great at solving problems, but in your personal world, it's your enemy. It's number one enemy, because the brain works to protect you. That's the function, really, right? And how does it do that? It can turn crossing the road into a life or death scenario if you allow it to, right? And there are some people that will go down that path. But I would lay in bed at night, and I'm sure there are lots of people that would go through the same thing. I would play out a simple scenario in my mind. 2 hours later, that scenario has turned into something completely fictional that could never, ever happen. But in my mind, it can, because it evolved it into something more and more and more, fueled it, right, to the point of now, whoa, this is super dangerous. It's nothing, but I can't sleep now because of it. And so lesson number one was just get out of your head, Things that are there today are going to be there tomorrow. It's not going to kill you. Something so simple. That's all I kept saying to myself. It's not going to kill you. It'll be there tomorrow. You're worried about a bill? So what? It'll be there tomorrow. You're worried about this decision you got to make? So what? It'll be there tomorrow. Slept like a baby. Still do, right? It's amazing. But I guess big one for me then was stop trying to rationalize and solve everything with the mind. Yeah? Because if you now accept that your brain is not your friend, the brain is not going to solve the problem for you. What it's going to do is force you to protect yourself by pushing everything else away from you. That's the way it generally works, right? And so a better scenario is this, because that doesn't solve anything. But a better scenario is, rather than sit with it in your head, sit with it in your being, in your chest, in your heart. And so, and this comes down to the first thing that I was doing with this was just taking all the things that I hate about myself, sit with the emotions that I don't like feeling. So abandonment is one, trust is another, guilt, selfishness, greed, desires, all these horrible, horrible things that have plagued my life. Yeah, I've managed to box, and I can lie to myself and kind of pretend they're not there, but they're there. Rather than try to control them with the mind, which never worked, I then realized if I sit with that emotion
And just feel it.
and just feel it, not just feel it, visualize yourself with it, almost see yourself sat by your heart with that emotion in your chest and you touching it. You know, what is the thing that happens? Okay, you realize it's not comfortable. It's not even nice, right? And it's not meant to be, by the way, but it doesn't kill you. You know, and guess what happens now? You realize it doesn't kill you. You're not going to make friends with it, but you're not going to be scared of it anymore. You know, it's nothing to fear.
You're not going to avoid it anymore.
Absolutely. And guess what happens next? Give it 10, 20 minutes later. Your body, it evaporates away, right? So, lesson is, when you're trying to control something with the mind, this thing can play on for hours and hours and hours. It doesn't get better. Your mind turns it into something
more amplifies
amplifies it, right?
Yeah.
Becomes something crazy. Whereas if you sit with it, yeah, you're going to have this initial uncomfortable feeling that goes with it. But in 20 minutes, 15 minutes, depends on the person, but you know, you sit with it, you take the power away from it and the body will excrete it naturally. Oh man, I was doing this like you couldn't believe.
I bet.
I was loving it.
It's complete cleansing.
I was doing it like you couldn't believe. And so that was lesson number one. There were many, many other lessons like, you know, how to get out of your head, how to just escape the brain. And, you know, I had amazing lessons on that just by visualization. A lot of what I do is visualization, right? And so once I was then able for me, and then of course there comes the point of, now I've got old habits as well, right? That I've just programmed into myself. Yeah. How do I get rid of old habits? You know, how do I take the things that were once triggers to me and have a different reaction? Quite easy. For me, it's just about swapping things out, right? Things like bad addictions or bad reactions, just swapping them out for something that was healthier, but acknowledging what they were, then swapping it. Worked wonders for me, right? I'm an addictive person, so I had to bring boxing back into my life in a big way. My dog is my pride and joy, right? But, you know, having...
I think I need to get me one of those.
Yeah, but listen... I mean, for someone like me that wasn't liking to be, you know, I struggled being around people, struggled being open to people. My dog was a great lesson for me with that because, yeah, with a dog will always love you more than it loves itself, and it's unconditional and it's, you know, unrelenting, and so
doesn't have an ego,
but that has no ulterior motive. You know, it just loves you, and so I always found it was easy to love it back. And once you realize you have the capacity to love in that way, then it was just a matter of transitioning that to
a human.
to a human. Yeah, but my dog is my biggest teacher. Yeah, I'll always say it really is my biggest teacher and my best friend. And so he's been my rock along the journey, and he's been along the journey with me. Coming back to some of the lessons, but one of the biggest things more recently now, because it's one thing dealing with your previous traumas, but coming back to the authenticity part, right? This is like coming into advanced level now for me was, you know, how do I figure out who I really am? You know, and what's really important to me?
Yeah.
And I'm a visual person. So one of the things that I learned to do, you know, because one of the things I used to say to my friends was look in the mirror, you know, and be honest with yourself. But I'll be honest with you, not everyone can do that. Not everyone can look in the mirror and still stay truly honest with themselves, because the reflection of you is enough to make you want to lie to yourself, all right? I find it takes a very disciplined mind to be able to affect that. However, there is another way and a better way that I like to use, which is I rewind my life in my mind, yeah? And so once you can't go back in time, really, you can in your mind rewind it to a point in time where you liked yourself the most, yeah? Where you were the nicest, the best version of you. So for me, it's going back to an early childhood time, 10, 11, 12. And be with that person and ask your younger self, your better self, who am I? The big questions. Who am I? What is important to me? You know, what is it I'm not proud of? Yeah. What is it that I need to change? what is the life I want to live? You know, what will make me proud? Yeah, and listen to what your younger self will tell you. And I tell you honestly, that younger self won't lie to you. You'll hear the truth come back. Yeah, and that will give you all you need to know at that point. You know exactly. You're hearing your own voice, but from the better end of where you were in life, right? And so I do that a lot, you know. So I sit down, mindfulness, you know, I go into my own little state of meditation, and I just rewind time, you know, and I go back to myself and say, are you proud of me? Am I doing the right things? You know, what path should I be on? You know, even I got a decision to make. What decision? How should I be going with this? And I find for me, that keeps me honest, because that little person there is not the one I want to disappoint. You know, because that was my purest version of me. I can't let that one down. And so that is my powerful tool for finding who I am today.
That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
We all got to find our own coping mechanisms and our own sort of ways to center ourselves and ground ourselves and find the path that is our true, authentic path, right? I mean, everyone's got their own ways of doing it, but I really appreciate the way you shared that. Hopefully it will help some people who are struggling with these sort of things.
Listen, it's never going to be easy, right? And I don't care how well balanced you are and how well put together you are, because life is not easy. It's not built to be easy, right? The world around us is always going to be a difficult place to maneuver and navigate. I think one of the key areas for me that gives me some makes my days easier is the control thing. I've had to learn to let go of control and understand that control is an illusion. There are only 3 things in my world that I can control, which are, I guess, my thoughts, my words, and my actions. Outside of that, there's nothing in my control, right? And so every day you're going to have to make 1,000 decisions, you know, and each of those decisions are going to lead on to another decision to be made. If your decision making is reliant on outcomes, and most people's outcomes are positive, negative. Is this outcome going to benefit me? It could be financial, right? Or is it going to take my career on a better path? Well, that doesn't always align with your integrities, because something that benefits you financially can be the shortcut road, right? Which can be illegal, for instance, right? So it doesn't always mean it's aligned with you. And guess what happens? You don't know the outcome is going to reward you in that way. So if you've made that decision unethically and it still doesn't have the reward that you expected, you're now in a worse position. And guess what? You've got to make another decision, but you're now having to bury that bad decision. So decision making should be really simple for me, which is just base it on your ethics. Base it on, will you be proud of the decision you made or not? You know, would the people that are important to you be proud of your decision or not? And I would always say this, you don't need laws to tell you right from wrong. You know, your own ethics should be enough for that. We all know what right and wrong is. And if you follow that path, there is no such thing as a bad decision. So you can let go of control at that point. You know, because control is an illusion. Outside of you, it's an illusion. And so follow the path that is guided by your morality, your ethics, your integrities, and your heart. Yeah? You'll always stay authentic. And guess what? That path will always most likely end up where you expect it or where you want it to end. But if anything, it may take you on a better path. That for me is a very, you know, I've simplified my life so much. And it's just worked wonders.
Mate, I think we're going to call it a day, but you definitely seem like you're in a good place. And, you know, I've had a few chats, deep chats with you over the last year. That's why I thought it was great to get you in the studio. But thanks for opening up, bruv.
Man, appreciate it, bro.
And I hope people enjoyed the episode. You're not going to get this, you would never hear this anywhere else.
But listen, I think that's what's important, right? Because I hear what you're doing, and I kept saying to myself, you know what? This guy's put himself out there, you know, and we've all bottled stuff up. Or I've bottled stuff my whole life. And sharing is so important, but sharing with the right people. You know, sharing with people that are championing for you.
Yeah, and people who aren't judging you.
Yeah.
Right.
And listen, if someone can hear this and someone says, you know what, there is a better way forward. We've all lost friends to all the wrong reasons. And so it could have been me. at any point. I've been in dark places, and you've gone through your challenges, right? And so, you know, there's just there is a better way forward. And so what you're doing on your platform is amazing,
Thanks, man.
and happy to have shared, and just hope, people get something from this.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. It was a longer episode this time, but hope you enjoyed it. Catch you next time.